Hey everybody, it's Greg from Park Journey here. It's been a while since we've done anything really, any kind of video or anything like that. So we're going to try to get back into doing some things. We've kind of come up with some ideas over the last little bit to kind of expand our YouTube presence and things like that. So first of all, as you can see, I'm kind of in a new environment. We moved last week. So I've got my own little office here, and you can see behind me my Disney shelf and Disney wall there. Getting set up, still unpacking and stuff. But one of the things we kind of did a couple weeks ago is we shared some pictures of Magic Mountain from 2006, and kind of looking for ideas about how we can kind of start doing history of these different theme parks. So that's what we're going to do. So basically what we're going to do is start off with doing videos looking at a theme park for an entire year. So like the year in the life of, Magic Mountain or Disneyland or, Walt Disney World. We'll take one of the parks there and things like that. And we're even going to do it for like haunted events. So like Scary Farm and Horror Nights and Fright Fest and stuff. We thought that was kind of a unique thing that I haven't really seen done too much. And have some fun with it. Kind of looking back at a year in a park. So I will say before we start this off that prior to 2004, I didn't really visit any parks outside of California. So anything that's before that will probably be, Southern California based, which is fine. Got a lot of really good stuff from those years that I would love to share with you all. And then at some point, I'd also like to have special guests and things to talk about other parks from previous years that I didn't visit, just kind of host them and have them talk about it and share pictures and videos and things like that, once we kind of get this going a little bit. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get started looking back at Six Flags Magic Mountain in the year 2006. So I will say this, so I'll start off by mentioning that this was the 45th anniversary of the Six Flags chain in 2006. So as you can see here at the front of the park, they had a nice little 45th anniversary thing. They didn't really do too much in the park other than that, just a couple of decorations here and there. And I will also say prior to this year, I hadn't really been going to Magic Mountain the previous few years. I've actually visited the park every single year since 1981 when I was 6 years old. My first visit ever to the park that I can remember was with my grandmother and waiting for Roaring Rapids right after it opened, which was, which was pretty awesome and fun. So like I said, I've actually visited the park every year since 1981. Including this year. I actually did do a few visits earlier this year for West Coast Racers and things like that as well. But prior to 2006, I had only been making maybe one or two visits to the park every year, just because work and family and things like that. I've actually been a pass holder at Magic Mountain since about 1988, pretty consistently. I think there might be 1 or 2 years that I wasn't a pass holder, and it's probably from like 2005 and maybe first part of 2006. So prior to 2004, I hadn't actually visited any parks outside of California, and then in 2004 we went to Texas, and then 2005 we went to Pennsylvania, Hershey Park and Dorney and Six Flags Great Adventure and Knoebels. And it was then that I kind of stopped being interested in Six Flags Magic Mountain, just because of some of the things that they were doing at the time that I'll kind of get into a little bit in this video. But anyway, 2006 was the 45th anniversary of Six Flags chain. And just as a aside, this is next year is actually the 50th for Six Flags Magic Mountain. Obviously, with everything going on, we're not sure what they're going to actually be doing and things like that, but we'll share it when we do. So the big thing in 2006 was the construction and opening of Tatsu. So here's a couple of pics from March of 2006 showing the construction of Tatsu. This one shows that they are working on part of the pretzel loop, and you can see Revolution there as well. And as you can see, most of the track by March of 2006 was completed. And the ride actually did open in May of 2006. This is back when the park was actually opening rides in time for summer. And the weird thing about this is, the weird thing about Tatsu as well is, as we all know, the last few years they've been doing announcements in August, or the Thursday before Labor Day. This actually wasn't even announced until November of 2005. So it was really 6 to 8 months prior to the ride even opening that they had announced it. But obviously they had been working on the ride prior to November of 2005. So a couple of other pics from that day in March of 2006. One here of a ride that is no longer with the park, and that is the Swiss/Sierra Twist, which was a Bayern curve, which we all really miss. So here you can see my kids at the time riding it. And this ride actually left the park a couple years later in 2008. And here you can see me taking a couple of pictures that I wouldn't do today on Colossus. Obviously, with Colossus is closed now. It's Twisted Colossus, but I wouldn't take on-ride pictures anymore. So this was back when you could kind of get away with that kind of stuff. So here's a nice pic of the overview of Tatsu from the Colossus lift hill. So you can see how nice and orange and shiny it is back in 2006. Just a couple of months before the ride actually opened. And another kind of blast from the past is Batman with its old Gotham City gray. This is back before DC Universe, when it was just Gotham City backlot. And then one other thing from this March visit that I'll go ahead and touch on is Jetstream. For those of you that don't know, the few years prior to this, it was known as the Arrowhead Splashdown. So it was Jetstream from 1972 through 2001. And then from 2001 to 2006, it was the Arrowhead Splashdown. And then it turned back to Jetstream, thankfully, in 2006. So this is still one of our favorite attractions at the park. And it was nice to kind of see that the old name had come back. So I, for some reason, took note of this back in 2006 when I wasn't even blogging or anything for anybody. And a couple more pics of the Tatsu lift hill and first drop, again from March of 2006. So our next visit in 2006 actually wouldn't be until August of 2006, on my birthday actually. Here you can see Superman in its old drab colors. And as you can see here, Tatsu had finally opened. I don't think we actually rode it this day because I was with my kids and they were not tall enough at the time to ride Tatsu. But I did manage to get some pictures of the ride in action. And of course, being August of 2006 and it was probably about 100 degrees in Valencia, we of course had to take a ride on the Logjammer, which obviously is no longer there. And I'm pretty sure that this was probably my son's first ride ever on Goliath. So he had probably just hit that magic 48 inches and had probably ridden a couple of rides at the 48 mark prior to getting on Goliath. But I'm pretty sure that this might have been his first time ever on Goliath. And here you can see again Tatsu, overview of Tatsu, this time from the Goliath lift hill. And again, I wouldn't take these pictures today. I would get some nasty emails from the park from taking these pictures on the ride. And then back in the corner there, you can also see Deja Vu. Here's another thing that's not there anymore, which is Colossus County Fair. There was a couple of different signs here. A couple near Colossus, and then one over by where Crazanity is now, where the metro station was that they took out. So this was again another blast from the past. I would have loved to have a print of this or something like that when they took all that out, because this was always a fun sign, I thought. Here we have the Gotham City backlot. As I mentioned previously, this changed over to DC Universe, but back then it was basically created inspired by the 1989 Batman film, the Tim Burton one. And you can still even hear the music and stuff back there. And here is something that people probably don't miss too much. This was Psyclone, that's now in the spot where Apocalypse is. So I remember actually riding Psyclone in the early 90s. And again, you have to remember at the time I wasn't traveling to ride coasters or anything like that. I had never really ridden anything outside of Southern California and Great America and Santa Cruz Boardwalk. So I didn't think it was that bad of a ride. I do remember it changing after the 94 earthquake. It just getting a lot worse until its closure in 2006, this was the last year that it was open. It was pretty bad there in 2006. I know that we actually rode it a few times the last year. Not too many. This wasn't one that we would ride too often the last few years that it was open. It just turned very painful. And here we'll take a look at Superman. Again, this was the original Superman the Escape. And I actually believe, looking at my son's face, this was probably his first time ever on Superman. I remember the first time he rode it. He looked down that track from that tunnel and did not know what to expect. And then we rode it and he said, "Is that it?" And I think that was probably a lot of people's first impression of Superman. I will say that we are huge fans of Escape from Krypton. I think the backwards launch is great, and we're hoping one of these years that they'll kind of do one side forward and one side backwards like they've talked about for the last few years. So hopefully we'll get that one of these days. So again, I wouldn't take these on-ride pictures today, but here you can see Superman at the top of his tower there. So a few more pictures of Tatsu. Again, this was just a couple of months after the ride opened, and as you can see, the line was all pretty long. Now, I've been criticized for my opinions on Tatsu over the years. I have to be honest, I am not a huge fan of this ride. And I'll try to explain why. It's not really the intensity or anything like that, even though I do find the pretzel loop a little ridiculously intense. But for me, when they announced it, I was hoping it was going to be something like, Revolution or Ninja, or even, Jetstream or Logjammer, where it would use the terrain of the mountain and have, some near miss elements and things like that. To me, they just plopped it on top of a hill. And even the station, it's a sore thumb. It sticks out. It's considered Samurai Summit, but the entrance is, by Roaring Rapids. It just doesn't fit. And this was really the era, and this had a lot to do with me not visiting the park a lot in the previous few years before this. They just started plopping stuff down, starting with Scream in 2003, obviously, where they just plopped it down in a parking lot. And even though this is in the park and on the mountain, I felt that they just plopped it down. They didn't really design the ride to use the terrain like I wish they would have. So it's just on a hill. They could have built it anywhere else and put the pretzel loop in a tunnel, and it would have been the same ride. It doesn't really do anything for me as far as it being, high up on the hill, because you can't really see much anyway when you're on it, as far as I'm concerned. Due to all of the elements, it doesn't really add anything to the ride other than the last turnaround heading into the brakes, the turnaround that goes over the fountain there in the front. That's really the only time you get to really see, the extreme height of the coaster. So again, I'm just not a huge fan of it. I know that a lot of people are. And again, I've been kind of criticized over the years about my opinions on this ride. But hopefully that kind of explains why I'm just not a huge fan of it. But I'll ride it, a couple times a year probably. And if I have friends visiting from out of town, we'll certainly ride it. Here's one of the celebrating 45 years signs that they had around the park. So again, I don't think they really did a whole lot for the 45th, but you can see here that they did do some stuff. Those of you that have been visiting Magic Mountain for a long time will recognize these signs here, which used to display what rides were actually closed on any given day. So here we had Circus Wheel, if anybody remembers that. I believe at this time Circus Wheel was actually a couple of different attractions at the park. First, it was a Chance Trabant, and then it was removed in 1999, and then replaced with a Tilt-A-Whirl, which was actually the same name. But the Tilt-A-Whirl had actually already been at the park under a couple of different names: Fiesta Dance, Baile de las Flores, which was over by Revolution, and then Jolly Roger. And then they removed that in 2008 for the basketball game that's there now. So that where the basketball game there is now by the boardwalk. That is where the circus wheel and the both circus wheels were. The Trabant, and is it Trabant? I don't know. Anyways, correct me in the comments here. In the Trabant or the Tilt-A-Whirl. Flashback, of course, was closed. We could do a whole show just on Flashback. Freefall, Superman Escape, which obviously, as we were looking through the pictures, it did actually open that day. X, which at this time you all know that X was closing a lot, and then Tidal Wave. So that was for my birthday in August of 2006. And then we actually went back a few days later for an event to hang out with some friends that day. And that day was the first time I'd actually ever ridden Tatsu. So we'll get back to that in a second. As you can see, they did do a 45th anniversary parade that we did see a little bit of that day. And then one of the rides that I think that people miss a lot from Magic Mountain, and I am actually one of them, is Deja Vu. As you all know, that there was 3 Deja Vus that opened at Magic Mountain, at Six Flags Over Georgia, and at Six Flags Great America. And the one at Magic Mountain is the one that actually worked the best. It wasn't always open, but I don't think the Six Flags maintenance team gets enough credit for the job they did on this ride. They did, when it was running, it was actually running pretty great. And I think it was a fun ride. I loved it. I was disappointed when they removed it in 2011. And as far as I know from people that I've talked to, it's never really run as good at Six Flags New England as it did at Magic Mountain, which is a little bit of a disappointment, obviously. And here we have Freefall. For those of you that remember Freefall, this was the first generation Intamin drop tower. I think this was a 42-inch height requirement, if I'm not mistaken. I remember my son riding this before, like right when he hit 42 inches, and absolutely loving it. And we actually rode Freefall quite a lot in the last few years. It ended up closing in 2008. But it probably didn't even operate until 2000, all the way through 2008. I think it stopped operating in 2007. And it was barely open from 2005 to 2007. So, and then it was obviously finally removed in 2008. But I just remember having such a great time on that ride through the years. One of the good things we did on this day in August was we actually were able to go up in the Sky Tower. Back when the Sky Tower was open. I don't even think that's even considered an attraction anymore at the park. I don't even think it's something that is actually even listed on their website anymore. Here you can see the first incarnation of X. And then you can see the construction going on for the office buildings that are in that location outside the park now. And we also obviously were able to get some pictures of Tatsu from the Sky Tower, which was always fun. But, kind of back to my point about them just plopping Tatsu down here, from the overhead, you can just see it's just there. They didn't really do anything other than, flatten some land for the station and the transfer track. So there's no kind of integrating it with the terrain. So you can see kind of the difference here between Revolution and Tatsu in this particular picture, where Revolution kind of goes in the trees, the drop that is after the loop that goes around and into the tunnel, and then back through the loop. It uses that hill. It uses that terrain there. A couple of the first few drops of the ride as well use the terrain very well. And then you look at Tatsu and it's just there. So again, that is my one big complaint about Tatsu. I would have much preferred it to use the terrain of the hill a little bit better than it does. But here's a few more overhead pictures of the park, including Tatsu and Superman. And then, of course, Deja Vu and Psyclone, which are both not there anymore. So this area of the park obviously looks a lot different now than it does in this picture. In addition to Psyclone and Deja Vu being gone, we now have Apocalypse. We have West Coast Racers, obviously, and then we have the maze that's back there in that area where Deja Vu was. So this picture would look a lot different if we could get up in the Sky Tower now. And obviously we're not going to break into the park and go into the Sky Tower. A couple pics of Deja Vu in action. So anyway, that's a quick rundown of Magic Mountain in 2006. We did not do Fright Fest or anything that year. I think the first year that we actually did Fright Fest, I want to say was probably 2008 or 2009. And we'll get into that in one of these episodes. We'll get into Fright Fest and things like that as well. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and end this first episode. So I hope you enjoyed this look back at Six Flags Magic Mountain in 2006. I hope that you learned maybe a couple of new things and enjoyed my thoughts on the park. So as I mentioned, we're going to spend the first few episodes on Southern California parks, namely Magic Mountain, obviously, Universal Studios, Disneyland, and Knott's. And maybe a SeaWorld San Diego thrown in there somewhere. And then we're also going to spend some time talking about the Halloween events. So Horror Nights, Fright Fest, obviously not Scary Farm. I mean, we may even have a couple of episodes about some other haunts like Queen Mary and things like that if people are interested in seeing those. In the future episodes, we will have more video footage integrated with the pictures. Obviously 2006 didn't really have a GoPro or, iPhone or anything like that to get a lot of video at the time. So forgive that, but it'll definitely be more stuff there in the future for that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Make sure that you click below to subscribe to our channel. If you have any suggestions for other episodes that you'd like to see here in the future, just let me know. I'm looking at my folder here with all of my park pictures, and I've got things like Adventure Dome, Adventureland in Iowa, Busch Gardens, both Busch Gardens parks, California's Great America, Canada's Wonderland, obviously Disneyland, a lot of Disneyland stuff, Dorney Park. We've got things like Walt Disney World and Universal Studios Florida from the mid-2000s, our first trip there. We've got Glenwood Caverns, Hershey Park, a lot of Six Flags parks, so St. Louis, Magic Mountain, obviously, over Georgia, Discover Kingdom, Fiesta Texas, over Texas, things like that. So again, if there's anything in particular that you want to see, just put it in the comments there. Make sure that you click the subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed.